7 o'clock. My name is Paul Wiedefeld, Secretary of Transportation for Maryland. Thank you for inviting us to provide an overview of our draft 6-year Consolidated Transportation Program, more commonly known as the CTP, which covers fiscal years 2025 until 2030. Before I begin, I do want to thank the county for taking the time to visit with us at MACO in August. The conference serves as a great opportunity to connect and understand how we can partner together to develop solutions for your local needs. For example, at MACO, you requested support for the county to establish a US 50 break and access at Warwick Community College to a county road. Mark Crampton, our district engineer, provided information about the process for the county, and please let us know if you need more information, but I know that he continues to work with the county on that issue. I will keep my opening comments very brief, focusing on an update on the department's finances, since it supports the capital investments for the projects in Wacomico County, as well as our services that we provide. I will then turn the briefing over to the representatives from the State Highway Administration, the Maryland Toll Authority, Maryland Transit Administration, the Motor Vehicle Administration, and the Aviation Administration to discuss projects and services specific to Wacomico County. Regarding the department's finances, to be frank, the department continues to face significant budgetary challenges because of the state's slow economic growth, historic levels of inflation, rising costs of labor and materials, and slow revenue growth rates for our revenue sources. Just to give you an example, our motor fuel taxes, which is our major source of funds for transportation in the state of Maryland, are down roughly $350 million. In addition, our operating costs have increased roughly $300 million. As you may recall, last year's CTP required $3.3 billion in reductions between the operating and capital budgets over the 6-year program period. Thanks to the governor's one-time funding from the Rainy Day Fund and the General Assembly's addition of $1.8 billion in revenues passed in last year's session, we were able to reduce the level of reductions needed to balance the budget. For example, we were able to maintain commitments to local governments to restore the highway user revenue and local operating transit grants. These are very important for the county for their needs across their system, as well as municipalities. Turning now to the draft CTP for fiscal years 25 through 2030, the department is making strategic investments with our limited resources to further enhance the safety of our system and maintain operations. Again, our first priority is safety and maintaining the current investments that we have out there. Getting into the details, the draft CTP is balanced and totals $18.9 billion over the 6-year period. However, because of the fiscal constraints, we had to make tough decisions and reductions to live within our means. This resulted in a reduction of $1.3 billion compared to the last year's final CTP. Obviously, this draft CT presents a challenging roadmap for MDOT. However, the department will continue to make strategic investments that support Maryland's families in a fiscally responsible manner. And just like how many Marylanders across the state are making tough decisions to live within their means, so is MDOT. Now I'd like to hand it over to Administrator Pines at the State Highway Administration to begin the local updates from all the modes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good evening, everyone. I'm Will Pines, State Highway Administrator. I'm also joined this evening by our District 1 District Engineer, Mark Crampton, if you could wave, or he's in the back, sorry, Mark, who helps to resolve constituent needs locally here in the Wacomico County. It's also was really great to see many of you at the Summer MACO Conference, and we'll continue to look forward to working through the discussions on how we can best support the county. At SHA, we understand that the fiscal challenges that Maryland is facing. However, I want to assure you of 2 things. First, SHA will continue to do big things, moving forward with multimodal projects that improve safety, accessibility, and mobility. Second, safety will always be our top priority. This means building and maintaining a system that supports pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists and all users. SHA has been proud to partner with our MDOT team members on the new Complete Streets policy, and we're putting it into action with the Complete Streets Leadership Academy projects. One other key tool in our toolbox is the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, or what we call the PSAP program. SHA has underway our first 5 PSAP locations, and we're hosting public workshops around the state this fall for those corridors. The information and experience that we gain in those areas will benefit the work that we do across the state to make our roadways safer and more accessible for everyone. We also updated Maryland's Strategic Highway Safety Plan to incorporate new vulnerable road user report elements as part of that. And this report identifies high-risk corridors in each district that are in most need of safety improvements. Wycomico County has 7 corridors that are concentrated around Salisbury that were identified in that VRU report. As funds are available, we will be working to implement highway safety improvement projects in many of these areas. Last year, I also talked about my goal to improve and modernize the efficiency of state highway. And over the past year, we've begun refreshing our access permitting process to streamline that, improving our review timelines to support economic development for Maryland. This includes closely tracking permits from the traffic impact studies to the plan reviews and to getting that final permit. And we updated our procedures and timelines to make them public-facing and to really enhance transparency associated with those access permits. During this time, SHA has both improved our permit review timelines while also seeing an increase in the number of permit submissions that we've received. We'll continue to explore ways we can work more efficiently to best support our local and developer partners. Now I'd like to highlight a few of our local SHA projects and thank the county for its support and partnership on these. And this includes repairs on the Maryland 991 drawbridge over the Wycomico River in downtown Salisbury, which was completed earlier this year. And we recently resurfaced 2 projects on sections of Maryland 513 and US 13 North. We're also continuing to work on the $3.4 million project to improve safety and traffic flow at the intersection of Snow Hill Road and Robbins Avenue in Salisbury, and we're on target for completing that project by the end of the year. Additionally, we're continuing the $16.6 million project to replace the US 13 Business Route Bridge over the Wycomico River in Salisbury. This will include an ADA-compliant sidewalks on both sides of the bridge and a shared-use hiker-biker path on the east side. We're expecting to complete that project in 2026. We also recently worked with the county and the community to perform maintenance activities like ditching around the Northwestern Elementary School to reduce flooding issues around the school's entrance. These types of day-to-day maintenance and customer service activities continue to be the backbone of the work that we do to support communities. While we must live within our means and our budget, as I mentioned before, we're still doing big things to move forward important projects, programs, and that maintenance work throughout the state. Thank you this evening for your time, and I'll now turn it over to Melissa Williams with the MDTA.
Thank you, Will. I'm Melissa Williams, Director of Planning and Program Development from the Maryland Transportation Authority. As part of the $28 million Chesapeake Bay Crossing Study, Tier 2 NEPA, we have made tremendous progress over the last year as we develop alternatives for crossing the bay at the existing location. We anticipate holding in-person and online virtual public meetings in early December. At these meetings, we will show the alternatives retained for detailed study for the first time. We anticipate completing the Tier 2 study in the winter 2026. Major construction began in April on the $140 million Bay Bridge eastbound redact replacement project. To minimize traffic impacts, we're using off-peak lane closures overnight with 2-way traffic on the westbound span. For each deck panel, crews are removing one section of the bridge deck and replacing it with a new precast section. As of September 10th, 37 of the 156 panels were installed. The anticipated completion date for Package 1 is spring of 2025, and Package 2 is expected to wrap up in the fall of 2026. Lastly, we deeply appreciate the outpouring of support in the immediate aftermath of the Key Bridge collapse. Maryland continues to work with our federal partners to secure federal funding for the new bridge. The MDTA has sufficient cash flow and capital reserves through FY 2025 to support additional expenses associated with the Key Bridge rebuild. MDTA will be updating our financial forecast before the end of this year to further evaluate the impacts of the collapse of the bridge and anticipated federal funding to determine the timing and extent of any future toll adjustments. Current estimates indicate the potential need for an adjustment in FY 2028 without any changes to current projected operating and capital expenditures. Thank you for your time and attention this evening, and I would like to turn it over to Tanya with MTA.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tanya Nichols, Deputy Director of your local Office of Local Transit Support at the Maryland Transit Administration. Locally operated transit systems are critical partners in providing transit throughout the state. MTA has implemented a new funding allocation formula which has made the distributions more equitable and responsive to changes in local jurisdictions' investment in transit service. We invest in transit in Wacomico County, providing nearly $5 million in operating and capital grants to support local transit operations provided by Shore Transit. These grants provide funding for preventative maintenance, a generator, and 2 small buses. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I would like to now turn it over to Chrissy from MVA.
Thank you. Customer service has always been a priority for us at MVA, and I'm proud to say that as of August, our overall customer satisfaction rating was 99.5%. Even though we did more transactions last year in our branch offices, it was actually up by 6.7%. We were able to reach a 5-minute wait time, which is pretty impressive. Part of the reason for that success is that 80% of our transactions are now done outside of that traditional branch office transaction, whether that's online or by mail or on the telephone, giving customers convenience and time back. We've also looked at expanding our one-stop shop approach, which is about bringing other government services in a convenient way. Salisbury is a perfect example of that, where we have Department of Natural Resources, we have Veterans Affairs, and it's really impactful when you think that 160,000 veterans receive service right here in Salisbury at the MBA branch office, that they would have had to go elsewhere, probably further away, in order to receive. We are excited that we're going to soon be issuing death certificates in addition to the birth certificates that are currently issued there. So when someone has a loss in the family and is trying to make that vehicle title transaction, now they'll be able to get that death certificate if they need one in order to complete the transaction with one visit, which is really our goal. We encourage people to continue to sign up for your MyMBA account, where you can conveniently complete over 60 transactions from any place. We also are really looking at how we can expand our service into the community, and that includes right here partnering with Halo Ministry Outreach as well as Hope Inc. We also started a new partnership with Wacomico High School, and what we're doing there is actually bringing the learner's permit test directly to the school. We find it to be really successful because the students feel more comfortable in an environment that they're used to, as opposed to, being a little nervous coming to the MBA branch office. And it, prevents that trip to the branch office, so convenience for the parents as well. We're also partnering with the County Health Department to promote healthy habits amongst our young people. At the Salisbury branch office, we're giving out, for those who are taking our driver skills test, information about healthy choices that they can make. We also remain committed to Vision Zero and zero fatalities, as the Secretary and Will have both referenced. Last year, right here, we lost 13 people, and unfortunately, so far, we're already ahead of that number at 14 fatalities in the county. And that's why we really are looking to redouble our efforts and do everything we can to prevent those tragedies from happening. Earlier this month, Governor Moore announced more than $36,000 in highway safety grants that come directly here to the county. That includes the Sheriff's Office, Salisbury and Fruitland Police Departments, and Warwick Community College, looking at issues like speed, impairment, aggressive driving, and seatbelt use. I would like to commend the City of Salisbury. They've been very active in developing a local strategic highway safety plan, and it's a really great way to bring together the partners, and we look forward to continuing to support them as well as the county as we all work towards that goal. In closing, I always think it's so important to acknowledge the great work of all of our MBA employees, because they're truly the ones that make it happen every day. And with that, I'll thank you for your time and turn it over to Ashish with Maryland Aviation Administration.
Thank you, Chrissy. Good evening. My name is Ashish Solanki. I'm the Director, Office of Regional Aviation Assistance within the Aviation Administration. It's great to be with you this evening to share with you updates at the MAA and how we are able to support your regional airport. Maryland Aviation System propels the airports in our system propels economic activity. We generate jobs. We provide assistance in the business development community, as well as transportation assets access to national and global access. Like BWI Marshall Airport, Salisbury Regional Airport is one of those economic drivers for our community. We recently completed an economic impact study analysis, and we found out that Salisbury generates over $92 million in business, indirect, and direct business revenues. Also, Salisbury Regional sustains over 1,400 jobs, and this is again on airport as well as off airport. To support these kinds of activities, MAA is pleased to support our statewide aviation grant program. This is a $3.5 million program for fiscal '25, and at Salisbury Regional Airport, we're pleased to support $766,000, and these will go towards the runway extension phasing project and the airport security improvement program. Thank you for the opportunity to share the update with you on the MAA. It's now my pleasure to return it back to Paul.
Thank you, Ashish. That completes our presentation. I'd be glad to take any comments that anyone would have. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and team. Usually I wait to the very end to say this, but unfortunately I've got a real tight schedule, and I didn't want to sneak out of here without thanking you for all your assistance on all these constituent issues, particularly always Chrissy Nizer and our district engineer, Mark Crampton. He's always been there whenever I've had to call, and I apologize for having to cut out a little early, but yeah, I thought I'd break the ice with a little flattery, because I'm sure there's some other things to come, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Good evening. I believe Senator Mouts teed that up for me. I'm Senator Mary Beth Carrozza, and this is our third visit today. Thank you for being in Worcester and Somerset, now in Wycomico County. I also want to thank the whole team, and of course we feel with the Secretary having his other home, I don't say second home, I say other home here on the shore, that we appreciate that your additional sensitivity to the priorities here on the shore. And again, a shout out to, especially with our constituent service, we have a lot of requests for assistance coming to MVA and to SHA primarily. So I want to thank the teams there. As well as recognizing in this meeting the importance of the Salisbury Regional Airport, and regional meaning there's really a sense with all three counties that it is the regional airport and an economic driver, and we have major investment in there, and it's good to see that the state's going to continue to commit to supporting that. I do have some specific questions. Wycomico County does an excellent job of every year, putting together their list of priorities, and we just were able to see those visually as well as the presentation. We have the handout for Wycomico County that's being presented from SHA this evening. I first think it's important that we, at the state and county level, just understand what's in this, because I took a quick read and saw the One Bridge project looks like it's close to completion. There's some projects on the back that are deferred. So I was going to ask if either the administrator or Mark Crampton could flush those out. So that's my one question. And if there's a cross-check between what you're presenting tonight and what we have listed in the priorities for Wycomico County. So we all want to stay on the same page on what we're doing in partnership together. I know there may be an update on the Warwick Community College priority as well, and that'd be helpful to hear that too. My other question is probably an easier one for MAA, is just to better understand your update that you provided for the support for the Salisbury Regional Airport. But I think it really would be helpful if we kind of understood the cross-check on the projects between this document and Wycomico County's priorities letter. Thank you.
I'll just start if I may, and I'll turn it over to the State Highway. We go around to all 24 jurisdictions in the state, and we ask for their priorities. And Wycomico County does a fantastic job of both articulating and visually showing them to us. As you can imagine, we don't have enough dollars to do all the priorities across the state, but it's important that we know what they are and we keep chipping away at those. So where we can have the dollars to do that, we have them in the program now. As I mentioned, that we're under some financial stress right now, so we're looking at opportunities to basically, in effect, defer projects at a logical point, so that when we have dollars, we can pick them up, not lose the information and the process where we were in developing that project. As you know, some projects take years to build, to get to that point, to get to a consensus, to get through all the environmental process and what have you. So it's very important that we understand the priorities and that we start to chip away at those issues. So that's sort of the larger picture of how we try to work through the prioritization of projects throughout the entire state. And with that, I'll have Will talk a little bit about some of the issues that we had to deal with in this year's program.
Sure. So going initially, I'll start with the question about the actual CTP book, that the pages that you referred to and held up earlier, and then I'll move to like Warwick and some of the priorities that are referenced in the letter. So in the book, there are projects that are clearly funded that are noted, FY25 or under construction. Those projects are planned to move forward, and with our current funding levels, we do not expect interruptions in the phase funding that's identified within the CTP book. There are, however, projects that are denoted as potential deferral. Those projects, as the Secretary mentioned, there are projects that we need to bring to a logical stopping point where we will not have the state funding to be able to complete them. And so part of the analysis when we talk about potential deferral is where would we stop? We don't want to make it a hardship later to pick it back up when funds are available to carry it forward. But there's a second question in there that we're working to answer, and that is that State Highway is largely driven by federal funds. Most of our projects are federally eligible, and many of the costs can be borne by the federal government. There's a bipartisan infrastructure law, and we want to maximize the use of those federal funds. However, when you do federal projects, they expect you to put in a state match or a match contribution. That can be, we do have agreements with some local governments for them to provide the match in lieu of the state providing it if we don't have the funds. But in many instances, the amount of needed state match is something that's really not decided until the very end of a project when it's reviewed for the federal aid analysis with Federal Highway. When they do that final review of the project, then we'll really understand fully how many state dollars are needed for these projects. And if those needed state dollars are very, very low, then these projects could be in position through federal funding to be able to continue to move forward. If there are more non-participating costs that Federal Highway would identify in that analysis, then we would have a shortfall in state funding and would not be able to move the project further forward. So that's why they're marked potential deferral. There's a lot of work that we need to do through the design process in order to be able to decide, is this a project that's still viable or not? So there are some cases, some of the major projects statewide, if you look at the larger CTP, where we've just said this is one that we need to defer. We don't have the funding to be able to do it definitively based on our early look at it. These that are marked potential deferral, we're still looking at and trying our best to keep them going based on the amount of federal participation.
My follow-up to that is, you brought up the potential of the match, and you mentioned some of the larger projects, and we talked earlier today about Route 90 being paused, but when we asked some questions for options, the option of a possible local match came up. If these projects are potential deferral on Wycomico County's list, number one, would they have that opportunity if they decided these priorities match to theirs and they want to keep them going? Or to give the county more flexibility, could they choose to say, we're going to defer these, and if we have the opportunity to do any local matches, we want to do that with Wycomico County's priorities as opposed to what's on this list. Trying to give the county as much flexibility as possible on the priorities they have presented to us.
Sure. We do have agreements with many counties today. Couple examples right now, Harford County has a developer fee that they have as they do economic development. They use that to provide match for some of our projects that we do in partnership. Prince George's County has casino revenues, same thing in Anne Arundel County. Those funds that they accrue, they're able to apply to projects and advance them forward. So that is an option with projects. I do want to be careful to be clear that we do need to have enough local match. It can't be like, hey, we're going to bring you 1% of the project cost, you do the rest because you think it's important too. We have to be able to fund it. So there is the local match opportunity, but we do have a number of those agreements today where if a project is really critical to the county needs and we don't have the funding today, we can advance it faster with that local match.
And we will definitely work with the county to be as flexible as possible, again, given all these sort of zigzags we have to do to get the federal dollars.
One just other point, kind of going back to the your question on the priority letter, you mentioned Warwick was one example. Our district engineer, Mark Crampton, followed up recently identifying the path. Our understanding is that the county wants to pursue converting, I forget the name of the route, we looked at it the other day, but basically one of the routes through the Warwick campus to make that a county road that would then have access to US 50. That gives us a broader flexibility than going through the developer process with Warwick. They're two different flow paths. Our understanding is the county has an interest in making it a local road, and that would be an easier path. And so we would need to see that in the county CIP. Once it's there, then we have a path forward to be able to move forward that access.
Hey, I'm Bunky Luffman, Director of Administration for Wycomico County. Thank you all for being here, but just clarification on the Warwick egress. Our Metropolitan Planning Organization is already studying the issue, and we expect to have that study wrapped up in January. So we'll keep you in the loop.
Very good.
Great. Yep.
Any other comments?
Good evening. John Cannon, President of Wycomico County Council. Again, I want to tell you we appreciate very much for you being here, Mr. Secretary, and everyone your entourage that you brought down with you. I can't emphasize enough how much we really appreciate the collaboration we've had in the past, as well as your local division is very good as well. They're constantly contacting the council and the executive branch to make sure that we know what they're doing and the projects that they're working on, and it's been a very good relationship locally. Again, as far as your priority letter today, it's about 35 items that we put on that list. Now, in the past, we've been granted all 35. I think you should know that, okay, for full funding. That's not true. I don't want to say that publicly and put you in a bad bind, but we would certainly, appreciate the fact that you're going to review these, and we understand that. The airport, as you've heard many times over, is so important, and I know Ashish has been a great partner over many years here with Wycomico County. We see that not as just a convenience for passengers who may be flying in and out, but it's such an economic driver. It would, if we were to lose the airport in this area, and we've invested millions in this airport because we recognize if we were to lose the airport in this area, trying to create an economic driving force in this community, not just Wycomico County, but the lower Eastern Shore, would be very difficult. You're not going to get a major business to come in here and grow your business and grow your county if you don't have an airport, because the businesses and the businesses' CEOs and their families, they want to be able to fly from wherever they are. That is just where we are today in this day and age. You're not going to get a business here if they have to drive across the Bay Bridge. So you're not even going to get a company that's going to come to Salisbury, Maryland, or Wycomico County if they have to drive across the Bay Bridge to get here to have any type of a discussion. So that's how critical it is, and I understand you all understand this as well, but this is just to reiterate that. So again, that's the emphasis we like. We know there's many other projects we certainly are, we'd like you to consider as well with all the municipalities and townships and the like. So that being said, thank you again for being here. I know it's your third of 3 stops, starting with an entire day in Worcester and Somerset as well. So thank you, and we wish you the best of luck and drive safely on the fabulous Maryland roads that we have here. Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
Well,
Delegate. Yes, sir.
politician, what can you say? Thank you for being here, Mr. Secretary. Ladies and gentlemen, you all have been faithful to us here in the Lower Shore, and I hope you'll continue to. The airport, as Mr. Cannon said, is very important to us for the whole region, for Delaware, Virginia, and Maryland. And we need to maintain that. I'm glad to see the progress on the Route 13 bridge over the Wycomico River since 1948. It's been a solid bridge, but it's time for replacement. And you're doing a good job of keeping the traffic moving through there while it's happening. I want to praise you for that. Other things. Keep up the good work with the roads and the highways. You had, what is this, the budget on this comprehensive transportation plan? 18 billion, did you say, over 6
Yes, sir.
years?
Yes, sir.
How much is that going to public transportation? How much is going to the highways and how much is going to the others? Do you have a breakdown
Don't have
on
the top of my
that?
head, but we can get it for you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll just ask that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, State Delegate Sharice Sample Hughes. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. I was coming out of town and I said, I'm gonna still make it here. No, mine is not really a dissection of the report or anything, but I just do want to make a statement that the responsiveness of your local team is much appreciated, because anytime I call Mr. Crampton or the staff, they're responsive to flooding issues that we have, not only in Wycomico County, but right there at the border of Dorchester. And they've been due to some pipes that need to be addressed over the years and many other issues. So to that end, I think the responsiveness is extremely important for us as elected officials, but moreover that the citizens can see that the state as a whole and locally are working together. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Again, I sound like Delegate Otto. Our airport is a jewel, even more so when I have my son, who is a police officer. He dropped me off at the front door, and I got right on the plane within 30 minutes. So I'm like, this is wonderful. I can't do this all the time. So to be able to be there at 6 a.m. and go where I needed to go, I was really appreciative. And I know the citizens of our area are as well. So I look forward to continue to work with you, not only in this county, but also in Dorchester County. And thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See no other comments. I did, again, wanted to thank the county for hosting us tonight. And Mr. President, to your comment about an entourage, I actually do, I do require a number of our people to come because I want, we have a lot of people that work here every day, but more importantly, I have people that work statewide issues, but I want them to be out, in some of the local communities to understand, some of the pressures and understand their needs as well. So that is the reason I do bring a number of people down with me. I don't need anyone to carry my bags, but I want them to hear, some of the concerns. So thank you for bringing that up. We appreciate the opportunity. Great. Thank you all. Have a good night.